50 years ago, secret biological warfare trials were carried out in the skies and on the streets of East Anglia without the public knowing. So alarming are our discoveries that tonight's programme is an Inside Out special.
Were 3 deaths from cancer in this woman's family the result of spraying cadmium from military aircraft?
I really put it down to the cadmium being dropped and it was settled into the soil.
It was top secret. It mustn't be told to the people what was happening. I think it does matter, you know, in terms of the health of people, that they know that this is being inflicted on them.
We came to the conclusion that no one is likely to have suffered any harm from the amounts of zinc cadmium sulfide they might have encountered even in a worst case scenario.
In the 1950s, as the Cold War escalated, there were fears that Britain, as an exposed, vulnerable island, could be devastated by a biological or chemical warfare attack.
In readiness for possible war, people living in vast areas of Bedfordshire, Norfolk and the East Coast became guinea pigs in covert defence experiments. Inside Out disentangles the facts from the deceit to reveal a disturbing chapter of secret history that may prove to be at odds with the official line. A chemical concoction comprising cadmium was used to mimic how a biological germ cloud would spread if Soviet Russia released one during an attack on us. Rural Bedfordshire was sprayed from aircraft and, more shockingly, from a converted lorry. The city of Norwich was hit over a sustained period. The Ministry of Defence have consistently said there was no significant health risk as a result of the experiments.
I used to work in the cancer field, and I always knew that cadmium, you know, was a deposit in your body that you oughtn't to have. Why they chose cadmium, why they did the whole test, you know, is a mystery to me.
In 1963, Norfolk was first sprayed with this chemical. At the time, Yvonne Jarman lived on Halvergate Marshes near Great Yarmouth. There was no history of cancer in her family before then.
First of all, my mother had esophageal cancer and she died with it, and then my sister, she had esophageal cancer and she died with it October 2005, and then my brother, he died with it, and this was earlier this year, and now I've got it.
Do you believe then that Halvergate could have a higher concentration of this cadmium because of its position and where the wind would have blown the zinc cadmium sulfide at the time of the tests?
Well, I don't know if it could have been any more there, any more than it is in other places, but I'm pretty sure that Halvergate had its fair share.
Inside Out has delved deeper into this story. Not only have we discovered that scant regard was paid to the safety of these experiments, but that there were highly questionable ethics involved. So how did it all come about? In the 1950s, the Russians were taking an aggressive stance, yet if war came again, it would be played under different rules. Chemical, biological and nuclear weapons were waiting in the wings. Here in Britain, the Defence Research Establishment at Porton Down in Wiltshire was doing its best to find ways to protect us.
Porton Down wanted to find out if the Soviets launched a biological cloud off the coast of Britain and it rolled across Britain. They wanted to see what effect it would actually have in killing people and you know, inflicting damage on Britain.
So what they had to do is look round for something that they called a simulant. Now a simulant is a supposedly harmless substance that mimics all the properties of a real biological warfare agent. And they settled on a substance called zinc cadmium sulfide. What would happen quite often is a plane will fly off the coast, started at Cromer, flew down past Lowestoft, down the east coast and then along the English Channel, always spraying zinc cadmium sulfide all the time, quite large quantities of it, at least £1 a mile. Some of these particles will get stuck in the sampling units. The sampling units are then taken away, they're studied, mainly by having a fluorescent light played onto them, and the individual particles of the simulant are then counted by a scientist.
Frontline RAF bases like Cardington outside Bedford were redeployed for defence against an enemy which was yet to show its hand. Today the military presence has gone, but hidden ghosts still linger. Most prominent among the remains now are the two vast hangars which housed airships like the famous R101. But also stationed here was the balloon defence establishment, and connected with that is a far darker history. Although the future for airships was uncertain, the technology still had a use in weather monitoring. The balloon defence establishment emerged from the Second World War, fired up with all sorts of secret military work that could be disguised as meteorology. So clandestine were its operations that even employees were kept in the dark about what was going on.
We worked in this hangar on the balloons, repairing, inflating, rigging them. The people that did the weather balloon, which was just around the corner here, they attached various instruments to it, but I mean, I don't know what they were.
Another former balloon defence serviceman, Bob Musket, has lived in Cardington for most of his life. While he worked on the base, gossip was commonplace.
During the time I was there, the rumours were rife about this. They were experimenting with different things. And the major one was gas, the use of gas in wartime.
What you don't know, you don't worry about, and so if they're doing something that they haven't told you about, then the fewer people that know about it, then it's a better kept secret, isn't it?
At the time, Porton Down was a completely secret establishment. It was barely known about. So it was just a sort of reflex action at the time that everything they did was kept in complete secrecy. And their argument was that you couldn't tell the public what was going on, because if you told the public what was going on, then the Russians would find out.
These open-air biological trials might never have come to light if it wasn't for people like Mike Kenner. Styled as an open government campaigner, Kenner has made full use of the Freedom of Information Act to obtain access to locked-away government files. He's unearthed some startling facts about what went on in East Anglia. But there's one secret that has turned Kenner's investigation on its head.
Recent document has come to light from Porton Down which shows that they didn't check this substance for toxicity prior to the spraying, or indeed even afterwards. The former Porton scientist who investigated this in 1999 was quite surprised that no one had bothered to research on how this would affect the public.
This is a copy of the official report. It acknowledges that cadmium is a poisonous heavy metal, but it was not tested for its toxicity prior to the experiments. Alarmingly, this was admitted to be a deficit.
Normally, a substance used by Porton Down, especially in a public area, would be subjected to a toxicity test. This toxicity test would mean that the substance was given a unique T number. Zinc cadmium sulfide has no T number. No one appears to have looked into the ramifications of breathing this substance in, especially in the size that they sprayed it in, between 1 and 5 microns, which obviously means that it gets deep into your lungs.
Coming up, the lanes of Bedfordshire turned into an outside laboratory.
The amount of cadmium we're exposed to anyway, by which is released by industry into the atmosphere, is very much greater than anyone was exposed to from this.
We know something that potentially was harmful was introduced into the atmosphere here.
In and around Cardington, at least 55 field tests were carried out over a 6-year period. We discovered that 32 of them involved the use of a specially converted van. This enabled the chemical compound to be sprayed secretly out of a vent in the roof.